Hello everyone, this is Ian, Mr. What Happens in Pokemon himself, and today I am going to be bringing you the Hive Beedrill, that's a great start to the video, mess up the name, Hive Beedrill Season 4 draft analysis for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm sorry, I'm just looking over my team again, and on one hand, I really like it. It's really fun, and I really like the mons on it. But on the other hand, I feel like the person that was drafting with me, told me not to get a Pokemon, and I decided, you know what? No, I want to plan out the rest of the draft myself. And I feel like he just hasn't talked to me since. Just because I feel like he just looked at my draft and was like, Ian, what the hell are you on? uh, but sometimes it's nice to be back in Pokemon. It's been a long time since I've drafted. It's been like a year and a half maybe since I've wanted to do competitive draft league. I legitimately lost interest in Pokemon for a long time, as you can tell from my channel. I did a draft league a long time ago, and that was one of the last draft leagues I ever did, just because I lost interest. And a lot of leagues that I was in, I just kept getting hacked in, and it felt like Pokemon just wasn't being fun anymore. It wasn't because I kept losing, it was just because I felt like it was getting stale. I felt like things just... a large part of why I kept losing was because I just didn't legitimately care. I just kind of put together a lot of standard builds, and then... and then, even though those standard builds would have won, when I got hacked out of it, I didn't feel angry at the loss, and I didn't feel like... whatever, because I didn't care enough. I didn't care enough to even... there was one game against, I believe, TC, where I had, 3 good switch-ins to Devastating Drake on his Kommo, and he went for a Devastating Drake with his Kommo, and I didn't switch into any of them, just assuming he wouldn't do it, and I lost the game because of it. I just wasn't making good plays towards the end of my career, so I just kind of quit for a while. And I wanted to get back into it, so... as I stated in my last video, I won the Hive Invitational Tournament, the HIT tournament, and I got placed into Beedrill. I was a bit premature in saying I thought I was going to make Mega Beedrill. Someone said I was going to, so that's why I jumped the gun on it. But, honestly, I'm perfectly fine with being a Beedrill. I really don't care. It's just as fun to me, and this is basically where I've always been, because Beedrill is the former Kakuna, which is where I have done legitimately every season of Hive that I have participated in, which I think was 3. Also, I may be messing up. This may actually be Season 5. I don't know. I may be messing up. I think this is Season 5, now that I think about it. I say Season 4... I think it's Season 5. I honestly don't remember how many seasons I was a part of. It might have been... No, it is Season 5, because I was a part of 3 seasons. First season, I made playoffs. Second season, I got knocked out of playoffs because of a Mega Aerodactyl crit. And the third season, I got into playoffs because of a divisional system. And both times that I made it to playoffs, I got knocked out in the first round. The first one literally came down to me wanting an item on my Pokemon, and I switched items at the last second, so my Thundurus didn't KO a lane. Whatever. I'm done reminiscing. I'm done reminiscing. I believe it's Season 5. I'm gonna say Season 5. Let me just change it. There we go. 5. It's Season 5 now. Am I still recording? Should I just start over? No. We're leaving this all in. One take in. Let's go. Alright, so let's get into the actual draft analysis. I feel like I've taken way too long, but... this season of the Hive, basically everything's still the same. We're just using traditional GBA tiers. There were a few new additions. Like, Mega Mawile was allowed, Taboo Lele was allowed, granted with telepathy, so it wasn't even a Tier 1 Pokemon. I'm not even sure if it got drafted, now that I think about it. Just because, like, I feel like people looked at it without telepathy and was like, but why, though? So, I ended up getting 6th pick in this draft, meaning I was gonna probably end up getting something decent. I didn't think I was gonna get something super good, but I thought I'd end up getting something decent. And what do you know? Celesteela fell to me. And I'm letting you know right now, I'm naming my characters after characters in Red Dead Redemption 2. If you haven't played the game, you're probably not gonna get any of the nicknames. I wouldn't exactly say these are spoilers, though, because most of the characters I named my Pokemon after, you meet, like, within, like, the first hour. So, it's not like you're going to just be, like, oh god, Ian spoiled all these nicknames. First of all, I know only 10 people are going to watch this video. I'm not that concerned. So, just throwing that out there, all my Pokemon are named after Red Dead Redemption 2 characters. I'm on a Red Dead Redemption 2 kick. It's one of the best games I've ever played. I'm just doing it this season. So, we got Celesteela, which is one of the best Pokemon in draft format, at least one of the best Tier 1 Pokemon, because it's so versatile, has a great typing, is a great centerpiece for the Fairy Dragon Steel Core that pretty much every team is going to end up getting. Like, let's be honest, every team is going to end up getting a Fairy Dragon Steel Core or something very close to it, simply because that's just a core that everyone gets. So, I want to start off mine strong with Celesteela, great coverage options, great bulk, great attacking stats. And the best part about Celesteela, in my opinion, is the fact that you can basically turn it into anything you want. It can be a sweeper, it can be a bulky annoyance, it can just be a very hard hitter. It can be physically defensive, physically offensive, specially defensive, specially offensive. And if you pair it together with a Z move, it's just gonna start nuking things. Like, or you could not run Z move, but people still have to prepare for it. Doris, get down from there! Hey! Sorry, my cat's acting up. She's in a spot where she really shouldn't be. Anyway, Celesteela, it does a lot of things, and especially with Beast Boost, like, if you see from its stats are pretty even in everything except speed, and it has a way to boost its speed. So, you can basically customize this thing to, if you get a KO, you get a Beast Boost in literally whatever you want. You can EV it to get a boost in any of its stats except speed. Pretty much. That's why I picked up Celesteela round 1. A great thing to build the team around. That's why it's called Dutch. It's the leader, it's the glue, it's what keeps everything together. So, that's Celesteela. Next, we go to Mary Beth the Latias, which is what I paired it with, and Mary Beth is the sweetest thing, and look at Latias, it's so freaking cute. I love Latias. I've used Latias before in Hive, and I felt like it was probably one of the better Pokemon that I used on my team, and it was one of the Pokemon that I was adequate with using, and if paired with Celesteela, they really complement each other very well. Latias takes super effective hits that Celesteela can't, vice versa with Latias. They resist each other's weaknesses. They both give me an immediate ground immunity, so I don't need to worry about being weak to ground types later, which is something that a lot of drafts can fall susceptible to. I mean, I may still end up being weak to Zygarde, but what can you really do against Zygarde when Thousand Arrows can hit everything? So, yeah. Latias, another one of those Pokemon that can be bulky, can be offensive. It has multiple ways of setup. It has so many useful utility moves, reliable recovery, hazard removal, a great speed tier in 110. Gives me some speed that Celesteela fails to do, and gives me some backup bulk. I feel like it was just a great dragon type to pair with Celesteela. And third, my third pick is kind of a pick that I really wanted to use, but I feel like in the long run may have screwed over my draft. Just because I could have easily picked another Mega, maybe even a Tier 2 Mega. And ultimately, I felt like I was drafting around this more than Celesteela. And I had a point scramble in the later picks that I could have solved by taking a Tier 2 Mega. But I saw that it was around round 3. I wanted to use it. I've been told how good it is. Some people say it's overrated. Some people say it's God tier. And that is Abigail the Mega Kangaskhan. I saw it was around round 3, and I looked up its stats just to make sure. And I was like, yeah, I want that. Very solid attack. As a normal type, it does get coverage, so if necessary, it can use its base 60 special attack to niche effect if necessary, although I rarely see myself in a situation where I would need to run a special Mega Kangaskhan. It also has good utility support in mostly Wish. It's a very bulky Pokemon. It can live a lot of attacks, has great offensive stats. Parental Bond basically gives it, I think, a plus 25% boost to every move that it does. So it really helps to assure those 2 KOs. Like, let's say you click return on a Pokemon and it does 47%, so that Pokemon could easily live with leftovers recovery. Well, you take into account an extra 25%, which is 11%, suddenly it's into a KO range again after leftovers recovery. So that little extra bit of chip Parental Bond offers makes Mega Kangaskhan a good wall breaker, a good bulky pivot. Again, I just love Pokemon that you can customize to do whatever you need it to do. And I feel like Mega Kangaskhan offers that. And I feel like it paired pretty decently well with Latias and Celesteela. Latias specifically because now I have a knockoff switch in, and I have a fighting type switch in that Mega Kangaskhan really doesn't want to deal with. And speaking of a fighting type switch in, like I said, a backbone so I'm not weak to ground types. I get my own ground type. A poison type, Miss Grimshaw, the Nidoqueen. Because she is the badass bitch of this group. Okay? She is top bitch, and she is going to assert her dominance. That probably doesn't make sense to anybody who hasn't played the game. So we got Miss Grimshaw here. Nidoqueen gives me hazard support, gives me a hard-hitting ground type, and I feel like with the team that I had, it gives me an electric immunity, so I don't need to rely on Latias to eat those electric type attacks. There's not really too much to say about Nidoqueen that hasn't been said before. Everybody who's made Draft League videos has said how good Nidoqueen is. And I saw it was still around round 4. I wanted it. I thought I needed it to give me a good hazard setter and Toxic Spike support with bulky threats like Latias, Mega Kangaskhan, and Celesteela especially. I feel like it's going to be very niche and very cool on a team like this. Like, Stealth Rocks is one thing, but having access to Stealth Rocks and Toxic Spikes is going to be fantastic. Right now, I feel like my team is very good. My speed tiers are very well put together. That's going to not be the case very soon. Like, a lot of my Pokemon are going to have the problem of a lot of them hit the same speed tiers. I don't think that's as big an issue as it could be, though. And I'll tell you why once we get into the next one, Arthur Morgan, the Tyranitar. Now, a lot of people wondered why I ended up getting Morgan the Tyranitar. One, I wanted another Stealth Rocker. Two, it gives me a very solid Dark type to help deal with Ghost types that Mega Kangaskhan necessarily can't hit, or bulky Psychic types, which, if I get rid of Pokemon like that, it opens a door for Pokemon like Latias, which may have a harder time breaking through Pokemon like that. It can help to... It's a great Pursuit Trapper, one of the best ones in the game, has very solid attack stat, a decent enough speed tier. Like, I honestly think a base 60 speed tier isn't as bad as people give it credit for. I mean, as people, like, say it is. I have 3 Pokemon that hit basically the same speed tier in 60. And I feel like that's fine. Like, it's fast enough to take advantage of bulky tanks, and it's still fast enough that if I ever need the niche week to run like a Choice Scarf or a speed boosting set, I can. I feel like base 60 speed tiers, especially on more bulky Pokemon, like if it was a slower Pokemon, like, I don't know, something bad, like Octillery, then yeah, like, if it gets outsped and it doesn't have defensive backbone to rely upon, then what's the point? But Tyranitar does have a defensive backbone to rely upon, resists very key resistances, and helps my Pokemon that I have, like, not have to run certain coverage moves in order to deal with threats. Plus, there are some Pokemon that I feel like Tyranitar will help in some matchups. I'm not gonna say which ones, but I feel like Tyranitar will help out with some of the matchups that I have. And having a great Dark-type Pursuit Trapper, another Stealth Rocker, and a pretty solid mixed attacker if necessary, I feel like this offers a lot. Plus, of course, having potentially Toxic Spikes, potentially Leech Seed, and potentially Sand Damage all chipping down my opponents at once, that's never a bad thing. So, at this point, I have ways of dealing with ground types, but I don't really have good ways of, like, hitting them super effectively. And I needed a fairy type. Here's my third base 60 Pokemon in Karen... Shit. The Primarina. My thing just kind of switched on me randomly. Primarina offers me a water typing and a fairy typing, both of which I did not have. Has very, very solid special attack stat. Like, at this point, Tyranitar, I had a physical nuke, and Mega Kangaskhan can hit very hard on the physical side. I wanted something that on the special side is an immediate threat. Like, Nidoqueen is also an immediate threat on both offensive sides because it can be super hard to switch into because of sheer force and likely Life Orb. But Primarina is one of the scariest Specs users in some of these in the metagame right now, just because it is very hard to switch into the dual stab of Water and Fairy. Primarina Very hard-hitting water type, pretty solid defensive water type if I needed to. I really like the trend of, I don't run hyper offense, I don't run hyper balance. I run just bulky, I want to say bulky balance. Like, I run Pokemon that can be offensive or defensive in any situation. Because with my teams, I need a defensive backbone at all times in order to feel safe. I don't feel safe if I don't have switch-ins to things. And my team can switch into things. They have pretty much all of my team members, aside from a few, have enough bulk to fulfill a certain niche role. And Primarina helps with that niche role. I have ways of dealing with grass types. I have ways of dealing with electric types. And Primarina gives me a way to deal with ice types, because at this point I really don't have a good switch-in to ice types. It hits everything either super effectively or neutrally so far, so I feel like this really does help and benefit against certain Pokemon. So the Primarina, Karen the Primarina, I think is really going to help out here. That's my personal opinion. And next I ended up getting Pearson the Rotom-Mow, because I needed both a grass type and I wanted an electric type. And there wasn't really much left on either side. Like, I could have ended up getting Serena, maybe, but I didn't like the points distribution, and I was looking at other grass types. I might FA for a different grass type. Like, I have things that I'm looking at, and I might FA for something if I get certain, like, things going my way. But Rotom gives me a very good speed tier in 86, outspeeding base 85s and below, which is in between Mega Kangaskhan and every pick faster than that, and Nidoqueen and every pick slower than that. It gives me a good balancing speed tier, so there's not a huge speed gap in between, because there is a huge speed gap in the higher tiers in my team, and I want to at least make sure that when it comes to speed control, I can at least control the lower tiers with multiple options. Rotom-Mow is reliably a pretty bulky grass type with base 107 defenses. Doesn't have a really good HP stat, but can be used to well enough effect. Very solid offensive stats. Helps deal with ground types, which again, like, I just want to which can open doors up for Pokemon like Nidoqueen, Pokemon like Tyranitar. Stop some of those Pokemon, because we all know how annoying bulky ground types can be. So that's Pearson the Rotom-Mow. Also gives me defog support, which yeah, I don't have a Rapid Spinner, which on a team with hazard control like Stealth Rock and Toxic Spikes and Spikes, as you'll see in a moment, I probably should have gotten a Spinner, but I didn't think my team was so weak to hazards that I necessarily needed to get a Spinner. And I'm usually not a super hazard control type of guy. Like, I can bring hazards if the situation demands it, but there are a lot of times, like, people can say about me that I just usually play without rocks. Because I have 4 moveslot syndrome on a lot of Pokemon. But that's Rotom-Mow. Next we get to Javier, the Acelgor. Acelgor is one of my favorite Pokemon to draft. It's just so fast. It is a reliable speedster that can outspeed pretty much every Pokemon in the game. like, it speed ties with Mega Beedrill. It outspeeds Pokemon like, it outspeeds Pokemon like Zeraora, Mega Lopunny, Mega Manectric, just to show you how fast it really is. The only Pokemon that I know outspeed it are Pokemon like Electrode, Mega Aerodactyl, and Mega Alakazam. And because it has all that speed, usually you don't need to invest everything you have in speed. You can run a little bit of bulk, like, or a lot more investments into what you need. Like, regularly, you're just gonna end up going like max speed, max special attack. But in Draft League, just being able to use your EVs like the best way you can help in very niche scenarios. And a Selgor, I think, is one of those very niche Pokemon. Gives me a second Toxic Spike setter in case I want to run Toxic Spikes, but I don't want to run it on the at the sake of a move slot on Nidoqueen. Gives me a Spike setter. Gives me a really fast, decently hard-hitting Pokemon. I mean, base 100 special attack is nothing to sneeze at. And yeah, that's basically a Selgor. I got it for speed control, so my entire team doesn't end up getting outsped after the base 115 speed mark, because my next Pokemon is Rufus the Zygarde 10%. Now, yes, I am running Double Dragon. Call me Billy and Jimmy Lee, another outdated reference. But why I got Zygarde is just because I wanted another reliably fast Pokemon, and I wanted a second ground type because I'm still not entirely comfortable around, like, electric types, and I felt like another dragon type and another ground type could just help to balance out my Pokemon. But realistically, I wanted something that could be a scary setup threat to force my opponents to prep for it, because realistically, my team can be so scary offensively and defensively that my opponents are going to need to prep for so many different things. And like Mega Kangaskhan can potentially force Rocky Helmets on Pokemon that don't want to run Rocky Helmet. If they don't run those Rocky Helmets, then how are they going to chip down Mega Kangaskhan? It could force them to make certain prep decisions that lend an opening to other Pokemon. And Zygarde basically, I think, forces them to make Pokemon between the 130 and 115 speed tier not be able to run like Modest or Adamant, because my Zygarde 10% can outspeed them, and I'm just gonna say it right now, I will make sure if I bring Zygarde 10%, I will not let those things run Adamant or Modest. It gives me a little bit of extra cushion in the speed tier department, and I'm going to be honest, nothing else in tier 3 was really appetizing to me, and I already knew what I wanted my tier 5 Pokemon to be. Like, I had I had multiple options for what I wanted my tier 5 Pokemon to be. I knew what I wanted my fire type to be, and it was a really cheap fire type, and I knew what I wanted my last Pokemon to be. It was between two options. I had the points for both of them, and I ended up going with one that I wasn't really thinking, but once I ran some calcs, I was like, okay, yeah, that works. So, yeah, here we go. Here's my fire type, the Count, the Rapidash. The Count, Dutch's loyal horse. Rapidash gives me another Pokemon over the base 100 speed tier. Gives me a decently solid fire type. Like, it doesn't have the best bulk, but it's bulky enough. Has, like, enough attack on both sides to, like, be an offensive threat if it needs to be. Like, I'm gonna be honest, it's a Rapidash. it's not going to like be it's not going to like win or lose me games on most accounts. But I don't know. It can be very helpful. Gives me a clear fire resist. In fact, it gives me a fire immunity in with flash fire and flame body, which can help versus the rare physical grass type. Yeah, Rapidash. I think it can work. I think with this team it can synergize pretty decently well. And then finally off, we have Air Strauss, the money-grubbing Sableye. Oh, God, I hate Air Strauss. Why do we keep him around? But yeah, Sableye gives me a ghost type. Gives me a clear fighting check. Like, I'm not super affected by knockoff. I'm completely immune to fighting type attacks. Have great utility in Prankster. In a lot of Prankster move, Prankster Taunt, Prankster Recovery, Prankster Will-O-Wisp. And can I just say, Prankster Recovery is like really good on a Pokemon like Sableye, where its defenses are decent, at best. Like, it can check Pokemon somewhat well, and then Prankster Recovery just allows it to stall out a lot of Pokemon. Especially if you run something like Prankster Toxic. And it is a decent move pull. Like, you're not going to run offensive Sableye, but it has a decent move pull. So yeah, that's the Sableye. Like I said, Rapidash and Sableye are both just kind of niche picks. They're gonna come to some games, but probably not a lot. I mean, a lot of Tier 5 Pokemon usually don't come to every single game. Unless you're memeing with them. Like, I think Zazzle once got Go-Go and brought it to every single game just because it was a Go-Goat. And he wanted to, make the joke of it being the goat. But, yeah, that's the team. Here's the team in full. I think synergistically wise, they work decently well. There are some problems. The speed tiers are a little wonky sometimes. There are a couple weaknesses that can be exploited. But overall, I think the bases are covered pretty well. Like, some people say that my draft looks weird. And I admit, it does look a little weird. It has a lot of Pokemon that weirdly you would probably never see together. You probably would never see Zygarde 10 and Latios on the same draft if you weren't expecting it. But, like, you usually wouldn't see Zygarde and Latios on the same draft just because they're both dragon types. And relatively the same speed tier, but in my opinion, that extra 5 speed usually does make the difference. But, yeah, there are weaknesses to a couple Pokemon that I will need to face, but I think I can deal with it when the time comes. I feel pretty good with my team. It's not the best, but I think it's a team that I personally like and want to use, and I think I'll have a lot of fun with. And that's what this draft is with Hive. Just me having fun again. I want to get back into Pokemon, and I want to have fun again. Because my channel name now is What Happens in Pokemon. What usually happens in Pokemon is a lot of salt. And I just don't want to be salty anymore. So, let's take Beedrill by storm, and let's stick around for a while. Hive has been my home for a while when it comes to Pokemon, and I'm very grateful for it. Let's have a new start, boys.